Dan to be Severn here, the only Triple Crown champion in the UFC's no hold barred history. Also, professional wrestler from WWF to WWE duration. And I still jump into an occasional professional wrestling match now. Here in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. And we are here in your installation of Hannibal TV. Pay attention, otherwise I know where you live.
This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com, and we're at
Squaw Peak Mountain
Squaw Peak Mountain
in
here.
Phoenix, Arizona.
There you go. Beautiful scenery, not only with the rocks, but there's some lovely ladies walking up and down these hills.
Eye candy. Good for the male soul.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about this place?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a little about it. I mean, it's just a great history. I mean, dating back for several decades. When I first came out to the state of Arizona, I came out as a full scholarship athlete at Arizona State University. And part of the, in the preseason, part of the Saturday morning ritual was simply to load up in the ASU vans, drive out to Squaw Peak Mountain, and then run up this mountain. Now, that was back then when I was young. Today was simply just a day of simply just, can I still make it to the top? Back then, I think my best time ever was 18 minutes. And I would be on the heels of the pinto ponies. What I mean by that is the lightweights. And they would hear me because I was breathing like a freight train. And they could hear my heavy lumbering steps behind them. So, but to be up here still to this day, it's a beautiful place to see all over the valley, very scenic, and even behind us a lot of other people that make this trek every weekend. I mean, on a daily basis, but the weekends probably we get a lot more tourists.
Now, you were telling some jokes on the way up here, and I was bringing up the jokes you used to tell in the cage. It's pretty classic, some of the stuff with John McCartney there.
A lot of it just, it's work. To get to the top of this mountain, it takes, it's not meant for just the average Joe to just try to make it up here. It's very taxing. It will work you out both cardiovascular wise, but it's one heck of a leg workout, but it's also a lower back workout. You're half mountain goat as well, because there's a lot of times you're actually reaching out and to hold on these rocks and help pull and stabilize, and it's a very unique type of thing. But like I said, what I first came to do as an athlete, as part of our ritual that we did there, I now do just because when people come in from out of town, all my families, my friends, they need to come in from out of town. This is one of the places that I tend to take them to because it's beautiful. You can see so many different cities. You can see Phoenix, you can see Tempe, you can see out towards Glendale. It just all depends on which area you're looking at over the mountain there. So it's just something beautiful to see and do.
And as far as your jokes inside the cage, we've heard some of them, but could you tell us some examples of what you would say?
Well, again, we're talking about climbing up the mountain here right now. I would always, as people are coming back down, and they're seeing that we both have kind of like we're panting, we're out of breath, and we're working like we're looking a little distraught as we're going up the mountain. Yeah, we're saying how much further, or I was told that there was a bar at the top, an open bar at the top. And like, no, there isn't. I go, oh, those liars. I mean, it just ways that you can have a little bit of fun with the folks, whether you're going up or they're coming down. And then there's a lot of people that have been passing me, and I have no problem. I'll step to the side, let them pass. I go that I'm a slow-moving object. They just don't have the sign on me. So but then even going back to what Hannibal was asking me about, telling jokes inside the octagon cage. I mean, that's I've told a number of jokes, primarily to Big John McCarthy, and I'll give you one classic example. First time I ever met Big John, well, UFC 4. I'm inside the octagon cage. He goes up to my opponent. He was saying something to him. I couldn't hear it because I was all the way across on the other side. He comes over to me, and basically the same thing. He just talks to you. He's very authoritative. He looks at. He's the referee. He's asking you to if you're in trouble, to either tap, or if you're still okay, to either give them an eye wink or a thumbs up to let you know that you're still in the game. So he basically goes through a very thorough type of thing that he will go through what he tells you, and at the end of it, he always ends it with, "Are there any questions?" And he pauses for a second, then he turns away, then he talks to your cornerman and goes through his ritual with the cornerman. Well, first time I'm going through this, he's going through all this, he hits that line, "Are there any questions?" I can't think of anything. And as he's turning away to talk to my corner, I simply blurted out the one-liner like, "Where did all that money go that my parents paid for piano lessons?" He said he heard it, but when he looked back at me, he's like, "Well, it couldn't have come from Dan Severn because I had my game face on." And then, magic is done. So the second time I meet Big John, same night, because it's back in the 8-man tournament format. He comes up and he's going through the exact same routine, and again, watching for you in trouble and this, that, and I know what's coming. So he gets to the point where he says, "Are there any questions?" I simply look right at him and go, "Yes. If you'd simply give me the winning lotto ticket numbers, I wouldn't have to do this." And he looks at me all dumbfounded and realizes I'm the same guy that made that last one-liner to him, and his wife, Elaine, was also the travel coordinator for the Ultimate Fighting Championships at that time. And he tells his wife that this guy's crazy. He's telling one-liners before he's about to engage in a brutal no-holds-barred match. And they think I'm crazy, but then after they get to know me, I'm actually going out to lunch or out to dinner with them and their family, meet their kids and stuff like that. And he realized that, no, I'm just actually a very relaxed individual, to the point that I can even tell one-liners jokes, and I've actually even told one-liners during the middle of some of my matches. So I'll just say that not too many people know about some of the inside secrets of that octagon and what the beast has pulled off.
And as far as your opponents, do you think that kind of throws them off a little bit, to see that you're that calm and gives you a little bit of an advantage? Because a lot of fighters, as you are well aware, are very stressed going into a fight.
Yeah, no, a lot of the athletes are very stressed when they're going in there, and they start to question if they put in the proper amount of time in their training camps and that. And I have pulled off some one-liners actually in actual matches, to where it threw their psychology or their psychological edge right off, and I was able to get reversals because I broke their mental state just for that moment. But there was also all types of techniques that I would do, and I always referred to them as mental disruptions. They were never going to knock a person out or make them tap, but it was something that I could do, and they would not really know where it came from. But now their mental mindset is they're thinking about, where did that come from? I don't like that pain sensation that just happened. I need to stop it. But they're not really thinking about the match. I should say they're thinking about the match, but they're thinking in a defensive manner. And all I'm thinking about is attack, 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 while they're thinking about defend, defend, defend. Puts me in a much better situation overall for the match.
Did you get into the mind game aspect of it ever, as far as Conor McGregor used to be a master of it, getting into people's heads before a fight?
Talking trash, things of that nature, no. I was never big into that aspect. I would rather almost be a little bit more of a mystery to them. I am a big believer, though, in the psychological aspect and the mental warfare of competition. For example, one of the things that I have done throughout my career is I've never sat down in between rounds when there finally was rounds, and they would have the proverbial stool that you could sit down. I made it a point never to sit down for a couple different reasons. First reason is if you sit down and you're all bent over, how well are you actually breathing and getting oxygen into your lungs? You only have 1 minute, but by the time the round comes to an end, by the time you get to your corner, by the time you sit down, by the time anyone's starting to administer an ice bag or a towel or get a drink of water, you've probably lost 20 to almost 30 seconds of your break. And so you only get maybe a 30-second break. Typically, as soon as the round comes to an end, I basically put my hands up on top of my head, interlace those fingers, and now I'm standing up big and broad. My lungs are fully expanded, and I'm taking deep breaths, knowing that I'm getting the maximum allotted air. And any time I had a corner person, I simply would say, just have a water bottle and a towel. I'd take a sip of water, rinse my mouth, and then basically take a towel, wipe down myself a little bit, and that was it. But I simply know that psychologically, my corner is looking back at me, and they're thinking, he's not sitting down. He's not tired. Oh, yes, I am. I'm tired, but am I going to let them know? No. That's part of that psychological aspect.
Now, you, of course, are famous for your fights with Ken Shamrock. There's that famous story with him and the Nasty Boys. What's your opinion on that whole situation?
I mean, I've heard about the story, and I heard about who got the better of whom, and I because it involves the wacky world of professional wrestling, I really don't pay it too much attention, because lots of things get distorted in that world. So I really, I heard the story. How does it affect me? It doesn't affect me really whatsoever. I just heard it, and I'll go, maybe, maybe not. That's all I simply say about it.
And what do you think about the famous match that Shamrock had recently with Impact Wrestling against Joey Ryan, who I guess this guy ended up being quite a pervert. He's basically banned from wrestling now due to all the allegations against him, but he was known for a move where I guess Ken Shamrock grabbed his dick or something, and then he flipped Ken Shamrock.
I call it the dick flip.
Would you have done that?
Well, I mean, first off, I remember someone showing it to me first, and not just in just that one particular match, but showed it in a couple different matches. That there somehow that he was. You said his name was Joey. What was his name?
Joey Ryan.
Joey Ryan. But somehow he had, I don't know, there's like a magnetic type force he would try to create, where basically their opponent's hand would end up on their crotch. And once the hand was on the crotch, then he would go with this hand gesture going, whoa, whoa. And then on that third one, whoa, then they would, whoever his opponent was would be taking the flip. And so it was like, wow. So it was kind of comical to watch that, but then to see someone like a Ken Shamrock that actually has a legitimate fighting career do a move like that is kind of going, well, I'll just put it this way, I'll never take a dick flip.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad that he was reduced to that, and that was the best idea that company had for him to do when he's
yeah, well, I always say that I mean, if money meant everything to Dan Severn, I'd still be working with the WWF, now known as WWE, because they had the wacky idea of putting 666 across my forehead, mark of the beast. But I was not about to sell my soul out for that. I cared about who I was and my reputation, because in the end, that's all we're ever going to be remembered for, what our deeds were and what our word meant.
There's a few fans that wanted me to ask you about your time as the MSU assistant wrestling coach in Saginaw, Michigan.
Is there a specific question? I mean, because I could go into the fact that I lived out in Arizona for a decade. I'm born and raised in Michigan. I lived out in Arizona for a decade. I was the first 5 years a student athlete at Arizona State University. I redshirted 1 year, so that's why I have a fifth year. But that year I did not really compete for Arizona State, but I was free to compete in all types of international competition, anything that did not involve the university. And then I was with Arizona State for another 5 years as the assistant wrestling coach before taking a job at Michigan State University. That's what brought me back to my home state, was working at Michigan State. So there's the background, but I don't know if there's a specific question about working at Michigan State. I mean, I only worked there. I had a 2-year contract. I basically didn't quite make the full 2 years there. A few things kind of happened with the head wrestling coach, and I basically Ended up leaving the program with a strong letter of recommendation, and my checks were sent to me. And I'll simply say that the head wrestling coach, less than probably, I don't know, 4 to 6 months later, somewhere that time frame, ended up getting caught again at some of the things that he was doing, and ended up going to prison. And because I also work in law enforcement and corrections, a couple of my friends from the prison that he was at simply asked, would you like us to pick out his roommate? And I go, sure. Someone that hasn't been out in a long, long time and is in need of love. And I always tell people, that I'm a big believer in karma, and sometimes I'd like a front row seat to see some things happen to some people, because it's not good to be a shitty person to other people.
Did you ever meet Harley Race, and what are your thoughts about his reputation as being one of the legendary tough guys in wrestling?
I met Harley Race, I'll say a couple different times, but reality-wise, only a much later in his career, to where, he was basically wheelchair bound at that point. So I had heard a lot of stories about him in his younger years. But I just, the man I met seemed just really a lot more down to earth, and just a different person than what stories I had heard of.
And as far as behind the scenes fights in wrestling, were you ever backstage for any?
Did I witness any fights?
Yes.
No, not really. No, nothing that, again, I was kind of a unique athlete in the sense that, the average worker, I think, worked, or I should say employee of Vince McMahon's, was working around 187 dates a year. And let's face it, if you're one of the top performers, there's even a lot more time being spent on the road for promotion of upcoming pay-per-views and that. My contract, I only had 60 dates with WWF at the time, but the biggest key was I was unlimited. Oh, I should say I was unrestricted, meaning I could work for anybody. I was working for the NWA at the time, and I was unrestricted with them. So I was working for the NWA, I was working for the WWF, and if I had a free weekend and someone approached me, I would be working for them. But I always made certain that I protected the NWA belt at all times. So it just always depended on who I was working with and what they were looking for an outcome, because I cannot be disgracing the NWA belt. Unlike some of the other previous NWA champions who did not really hold the title in very honorable manners.
What do you think about now? They tried to build that title back up, but they've kind of let it fall flat, and now I guess the guy that holds the title is the actual booker for the NWA, which is kind of a conflict of interest.
Ooh, see, I did not even know that until you told me that just now, the Hannibal. So it's I had heard some good things that, at least that I heard some good things that it was actually in a promotion that was trying to, revive it and keep it in a much more stronger manner, and that they had it on I thought they had it on a champion that actually had some legitimate background. So I guess you're telling me some new news here right now that I had not heard, and that kind of saddens me to see it go that way, because the NWA is actually very, very rich in history, and when you look at the lineage of that NWA belt, it goes back to the late 1800s, the belt. And when you look at some of the legitimate men that have held that title belt, I actually think there's more legitimacy in that title belt than probably any other professional wrestling title belt that I'm aware of.
You were probably the last legitimate champion, I would say, to hold that belt and bring a good name to it, and be a name yourself holding it, because there hasn't really been any big names holding that title even since its resurrection.
Oh, well, again, I thought there were some decent people that were, I'll say they might have been workers, but they were at least workers with a little bit more integrity to their credit. So again, as you tell me that, they just kind of just saddens, because there was at one point that I was even thinking that, trying to reach out to them because of the positive things I heard to see, is there a possibility of getting one more run at the belt? Just to make it interesting because of, again, just my age factors. But the reality is I'm still in pretty good physical shape, and then I could still do quite a few different things that for most people my age category, no, they can't. Especially when you look at just the sheer number of matches I've had between so many different industries.
Now, it's not just the NWA champion that breaks kayfabe all the time, but this is reminding me of it because he's a big fan of the group photos and talking about how opponents are all friends in wrestling, which isn't actually the truth. It's a backstabbing industry. But I'm just wondering, as someone who's been a wrestler and a fighter, do you think it's important to keep kayfabe in wrestling so there's some mystique about it?
Well, just to spin off on what you first said, Vince McMahon himself even broke kayfabe, and it saved him a lot of money by him simply just exposing the industry. It no longer had to be underneath the guidance of athletic commissions. I still say that professional wrestlers should be getting an annual physical, and should be getting some blood work at least once a year, because there's a lot of matches where people are getting cut open, and you'd like to know that they were negative on their HIV, Hep B, and Hep C. So, and there are some wrestlers that have been notoriously known for having one of those and still conducting matches and still getting color or bleeding in matches. So I still think it's a good thing to have at least a once a year physical, because there are a lot of wrestlers that are well past their prime, well over their weight limits that they should be at, and they are nothing more than a heart attack waiting to happen.
That is true. As far as holding that title yourself, is there any match that stands out to you when you were NWA champion that was your favorite?
Yeah, I'll say on two different occasions. One occasion was I was simply taking a trip to Japan. I was not the NWA champion at the time. Hashimoto of Japan was the champion. And I was simply just being sent over to Japan to be part of a tag team. But somewhere in the course of the flight over, it was decided by the powers to be that I'm going to be changed now from a tag team match to a singles match. And it was going to be for the NWA title, because Hashimoto did not want to relinquish the title belt to any of the other current suitors to the belt. But based upon my credentials and that, he would be willing to do that for me. So I felt that was I felt honored that he would do something like that, because like I said, there's a lot that Americans, not just Americans, there's a lot that a lot of different people around the world can learn from Japanese culture. They're very kind people. They're very respectful people. Japan is probably one of the cleanest countries I have ever been to. You don't see graffiti like you see in the United States all over the place. So there's a lot that we learn. And then when you look at technology and taking just a little space, how many things that you can put into a space. I know one of the movements in the United States is what's known as tiny homes nation, where they're trying to show that you can live in, a lot smaller home than these big old ranch style homes that a lot of Americans tend to have. And I do like that concept. I don't want to be micro, but again, I think there's a way of being a lot more efficient about doing things. And again, you're looking at making that lesser imprint on the planet.
You mentioned the blood tests in wrestling, that there really is none other than in the major leagues. What did you think? Well,
actually, not major leagues. Only a couple states. There's only a couple of states. Like for example, I know Oklahoma, because that was one of the things that in the last 2 years, I did a match in Oklahoma, and I know I had to get a new professional wrestling card. But part of that card was I had to have blood work.
Yeah.
And again, I have no problem about doing that, because if there's a match and my opponent's gonna get his head busted open in some type of way, I would like to know that his blood that's going to be all over me at some point in time has no diseases.
Yeah.
So I'm still all for a physical once a year and blood work. Now again, that blood work test is only good for a certain time margin. You can have the test and then go out and do certain things, and you can be dirty again, but at least you know they're doing it at least once a year.
What are your thoughts on Tommy Morrison, the famous boxer who was in Rocky V? He was fighting with AIDS supposedly for years.
Yeah.
It was always said to be from women, but if he was able to fight with it for so long, do you think there's a chance he could have actually caught it from boxing? And how would he have gotten around the commissions?
I don't know. That puzzles me. But they even asked that question. I cannot even give you a legitimate answer, because that puzzles me, because he should not have been boxing, because if he's got AIDS. And boxing, let's face it, you're getting punched in the head how many different times? Whether there be a laceration over your eye, a broken nose, a split lip. I mean, there's just, blood is a natural thing that happens. And so, should he have been allowed to do matches? I don't think so. I think his career should have been halted at that point.
I think the only way they found it was when he had to fight in a state where they had the mandatory testing for it.
I would still think that boxing would still, that's where boxing should, because it's so demanding and punishing to the body. There should still be that physical. There still should be that blood work. But again, because they're getting hit so much in the head, there should be some types of CAT scans and that, so you can see what is happening to that brain. Even when you look at just training, when a boxer trains, they wear headgear. To where I go, yeah, the exterior looks fine. You may not be getting cuts. You may not be getting a broken nose or split lips, but you're still getting hit in the head. And each time the head gets hit, it gets jarred and jarred and jarred, to the point that all it's doing is just sloshing around that gray matter known as the brain. Your brain can only be sloshed so many times before they turn it into pudding. So that's where, again, there should be tests. MMA has been around what now? I think 30 plus years. You have to look at, you're seeing athletes now that are coming up with dementia, Alzheimer's, other things that, is it based upon their genes? Is it based upon competition? Is it based upon their training? Because there's a lot of athletes, they don't train properly. They're taking more punishment in their training than they are in their matches. So there needs to be a few more studies that need to take place to really find out some true answers, so that it can save some athletes this hardship for them and their families.
I can say for certain I had at least one concussion from a sparring match with headgear on, because when I was sitting down after, the room was spinning around me when I was taking off my shoes.
I've had the same thing happen in football. During my high school football days, to where, it's only been, I'll say that in the NFL, maybe in the last, I'll say 10 years or less, that they said no more helmet-to-helmet contact. That's only in the last 10 years. Well, my high school football days were a few decades before that. So, I mean, I love football more than I did the sport of wrestling, but I did not have 10 other players that played with the same enthusiasm that I had. So, and if you lose, everyone loses on the team. Where I chose the sport of wrestling, because at least wrestling, the definition of wrestling is a team sport based upon individual performances. The team can lose and I can still win, and I liked those odds.
Did you have a favorite opponent in UFC?
No, I can't say I really ever had a favorite opponent. I'll just say that, when I get asked that question, do I have a favorite opponent? No, I'll just say that there was a couple elements where I really shined in, and UFC number 5 would have been my second appearance, and at that time I did take out 32 days of my life, and I trained to be a no-holds-barred fighter. I left my family back in Coldwater, Michigan, and I traveled out to Arizona, and I lived by myself. I basically was like I was like an animal in a lot of ways because I had very sparse amenities. I mean, I just had basically a bed, I think a black and white TV with a VHS replayer. That's it. I had, I think, 2 or maybe 3 VHS tapes of the UFC, and that's the only thing I watched. I ate by myself. There's a lot of times I would train by myself, but then there was other times that I would be training with just massive amounts of people, and I would just keep going, and there were no training manuals. There was nothing I could look up on the internet, Google-wise, to say, okay, I want to be a mixed martial artist. I want to be a no-holds-barred fighter. What things should I be trained in? So I basically just kind of made it up. And those 32 days paid off for myself because I ended up destroying the 3 men in the shortest amount of time ever to win a 8-man tournament. And then one of my other training camps was for the Ultimate, and that's where they brought back various champions and runners-up. They put out the biggest monetary prize at the time, $150,000, and I was inside the octagon cage at the longest period of time, just over 1 hour between my 3 opponents, and that was in Denver, Colorado, mile-high elevation. So I did 2 training camps, basically, in a 20-year career, and those 2 training camps really paid off for themselves. I always tell people, because I mean, for me to accomplish all the things I've accomplished, it makes people wonder, especially when I tell them that I only did 2 training camps, and yet, there's only 4 people in the world that have over 100 cage fights. I'm one of the 4. There's only 3 with over 100 victories. I'm one of the 3. And the real irony to all that is, I faced the other 3. I defeated the other 3, and the closest one to my age is 15 years my junior. So it kind of puts me in a category all by myself. And then you throw on lifetime chemical free on top of that. Try to find a professional wrestler that can even make that statement, on top of being in 2 different industries, because even in the MMA world, there's a lot of people that in that no-holds-barred era,
yeah,
juice monsters, and we're not talking about the squeeze box juices.
What did you think about chemo?
I think he actually, when he first came about, he almost had the air of a professional wrestler, because the fact that he carried a cross on his back, and it must have been a heavy cross, because he had his one partner, Joe-san, tried to mimic that same thing, I think like a year or so later, and that cross was a little too heavy for him to bear. And so I just say that chemo, was kind of like a wild, again, I don't even remember what his martial art was. I mean, I just know that he was interesting because he had just kind of like a shaved down head, and he had a ponytail on the back, and I just remember that Hoist Gracie was hanging on that ponytail, and chemo literally was lifting Hoist's entire body up practically by a ponytail. So all I knew is that when I got into the Ultimate Fighting Championships, I made certain that my hair was cropped way on down, because you only had the 2 rules of no biting, no eye gouging. So anything that you could do, including pulling of hair.
And as far as Brock Lesnar, what are your thoughts on him these days? He seems to be done with MMA. He was rumored to be around 12 million or so a year in WWE, but he's a free agent now. Doesn't look like he's probably eventually going to end up back there, but he's taking a break.
Again, I don't know. I mean, I always say, what has Brock Lesnar's impact been on my life? Really, none whatsoever. I've had a lot of people do comparisons, because he uses, a lot of times he'll use that beast moniker a great deal. And I always say that, well, there's been many beasts before me, just like there'll be many beasts after me. But I always tell people that I did not come up with my ring name, The Beast. It was actually given to me by a legendary NFL football Hall of Famer, Jim Brown. So he was one of the play-by-play commentators for several of the UFCs, and he's the one that basically kind of gave me that ring name, and so I kind of thought that's a pretty good endorsement. But I'll just say that I'm happy for Brock that he's made good money. I hope he's invested it well, and just like any professional athlete, your career will be a lot shorter than what you'll ever think it will be. A lot of professional athletes, they tend to squander money because they're so used to not having it. The moment that they do have lots of money come in, then now they start buying, the cars, the houses, the boats, the things of that nature, and they don't have anything really salted away for that rainy day because they think it's going to continue forever. But that rainy day is going to happen eventually. The key word is eventually.
Is there any?
As we're talking right now, I'm actually looking behind. How many people are going to wear? Okay, one thing to climb up the Squaw Peak, but we also have a gentleman back there that's wearing an actual weighted vest.
Yeah.
I would imagine that weighted vest is probably 30, 40 pounds on top of all that. That's impressive to see that. Sorry. It's almost like seeing a squirrel, of which we've seen a couple of those too.
Definitely. No snakes yet, maybe on the way back down. Speaking of being here in Phoenix, what's your opinion on that Phoenix Lights UFO sighting that occurred here back in, I think, around 96? Were you around for that?
When I've even been here, from 76 to 86 is when I was here. And then again, after that, I was back in Michigan, so I wasn't around even when that took place. I think I had heard about it at one point in time, but who knows? I mean, you see all types of things. To me, when you look at the universe and you see how many different planets there are, to simply think that there's only one planet that has life on it, I don't think that's a very progressive thinker right now. I think that there's got to be a few other planets that there is life that is existing. To what level? Who knows?
Yeah, apparently that was seen by over 100,000 people, but it was the days before cell phone cameras, so only a little bit of video camera footage on it, but it's very famous.
Well, but then when you look at New Mexico, area
51.
Yeah, Area 51. I mean, again, you have all these. There's a spaceship there. There's a couple, an alien body or something like that. You get there's all these rumors or tall tales. Who knows? But there is an actual area that is named this, and it does have some interesting aspects where your cell phones and stuff like that don't work all that well in that area. So,
how do you think Steve Blackman would have done in MMA? He probably may have had the best performance in the Brawl for All, even though he got injured for the first round. His takedowns were pretty impressive, and he had that martial arts experience.
Background. Yeah, I mean, you brought some excellent points. I mean, that's probably all I would be saying is that Steve Blackman actually came from an actual legitimate martial arts background, kind of diversified in a lot of different areas. So I just, to me, his potential was unlimited. He was used in between Owen Hart, Ken Shamrock, Blackman, and myself. We basically we are the four people that seem to be doing matches together, whether they be singles or tag teams, and something of that nature.
Who would you say are the top 5 real ass kickers in professional wrestling? You can include yourself.
I'm not the person to ask about that because it's I jumped into that industry. Well, first off, because it was an opportunity that came to me. I did not seek it out. I had some independent companies that were trying to get me in the early 80s, but had I turned pro at that point in time, I would have lost my amateur wrestling status. My amateur wrestling career meant too much to me, so I turned it down at that time. But as of the 92 Olympics, that's when a new rule came down from the United States Olympic Committee that allowed athletes to be both amateur and professional simultaneously, as long as you weren't currently involved in a high school athletic program or a collegiate program, because there still was High School Athletic Association rules or the NCAA rules. So I was well past my collegiate eligibility, so I could have my cake and eat it too. But there's there's a lot of people that they came from real legitimate athletic backgrounds, or they had again, I'm trying to think. because there was really no legitimate fighting taking place. But they might have been just a legitimate badass. But do I really know about if I could verify their credentials? I couldn't. I just basically just tried to get along with people while I was there, and then just get along and move along.
Is that why you wrestled in a mask at one point in your career?
Well, no, actually, a lot of people don't even know that part about me, but early in my career, almost right from the get-go, when I first got involved in professional wrestling, I started to wrestle underneath a mask and an entire body costume, so that you didn't see one inch of my body. I actually had footwear on, I wore gloves, and I basically was portraying a Japanese character, but I had a bodysuit underneath it to where I looked like I weighed well over 300 pounds. And I was going out there as Tubby Tanaka. And it was an easy match to do because I would simply just berate Americans. And I would tell them how lazy and illiterate that they were. Again, how much of that was a work and how much of that was a shoot? Because I was touching a nerve. People don't like to have their faces rubbed. It's a nerve. And there's a lot of people that they need to step up a little bit more, take a little bit more national pride, things of that nature. But it was an easy gimmick, and to come out with the Japanese flag and just to berate them. And then I always say that to date, Tubby Tanaka has never won a match, and everyone enjoyed it when Tubby Tanaka lost. But the psychological and the psychology that I learned off that was phenomenal as well. I think I've made the comment to a number of people, especially in my latter decade of my life here, that I think more and more people that if they're thinking about going into the field of business, I think they should take at least a semester or two of professional wrestling, because it will sharpen you or make you aware of a lot of other things, but it will also teach you the art of marketing, because professional wrestling is a lot about self-marketing.
What are your thoughts on the reputation of Haku?
Well, I've heard lots of things. I don't even know if I ever met Haku, but I've heard lots of things that he was a legit badass, and but again, it's only all things I heard.
Well, I can tell you he has a very thick skull and very thick hands. So
okay, when you say he's got a thick skull, do you mean this as someone took an X-ray and they see how thick his skull is, or is it? Do you mean this? He's stubborn, or he's?
No, by his bone structure,
okay.
It seems like just from the thickness of the bone in his head, it seems like he'd be a very difficult person to knock out.
I'll just say that different body types, facial features are really, you can actually tell on a person if they have a more jagged bone structure like that. They're going to cut a whole lot easier as those that have a more rounded and a more thickness and stuff like that to it. So again, I try to analyze opponents when I look at them as to what they'll be a little bit more susceptible to.
What are your thoughts on Colby Covington presenting a heel character in MMA?
I don't know enough about it to render an opinion one way or the other. If you elaborate a little bit more, because I'm aware of a couple of some recent matches that are taking place where one guy's fighting a fan or something like that in an upcoming match, or boxing a fan in an upcoming match. But it's just, I'd have to know a little bit more information in order to elaborate one way or the other. There's just a lot that I'll say that I still live in somewhat of a cave, that I'm I try to stay on track of my goals, and I don't really listen to much frivolous television, although one of my best aspects is, as I'm traveling down the road, especially late at night, I will listen to talk radio, because it pisses me off. It's better than a cup of coffee, and I don't have to make the pit stops like I would if I was drinking coffee. So listening to talk radio, yeah, is better than caffeine.
Why did you go with the finish that you used in WWE? Was that their decision, or did you get to come up with your own
Well,
finish?
they actually allow me to do a couple different things that they seem to visualize. They like the Dragon Sleeper. I mean, when you look at my MMA career, I probably finished off way more people in what is known as a scarf hold type choke. But it didn't look dramatic enough. So again, they just thought, well, they'll put a different type of a choke type hold, and they came up with like the Dragon Sleeper just because of the visual aspect. And it was a lot easier move to get into that really played into professional wrestling, aspects of professional wrestling.
Who would you say was your best opponent in the WWE?
Well, I'll say that I probably worked more matches with Steve Blackman than anyone. Whether that was on a singles match or being involved in tags and things of that nature. Now, but were they the best? No, but I mean, I worked with him more. I really wish I had been born back in the territorial era of professional wrestling. I would have really enjoyed that. Well, first off, because it's way before the internet era, so you could work with the same guy, 100 times a year, and towards like, okay, but the promoter's looking for this type of a finish this time. Well, the fact that you and I worked so many times before, we didn't have to really know anything other than what is the kind of a finish that they're looking for and what kind of a window of time are they looking for to fill. Then you and I would just go out there, we'll have a lot of fun. I really wish I would have been involved in that time era, because then when you finally have that loser leaves town type match, yeah, you lose, but now you're just going out to the East Coast, the West Coast, the northern groups or the southern groups. So I loved it. I would have loved to have been part of that era.
What's your opinion of the importance of different types of training and lifestyles in relation to fighter longevity? Would you have done anything different yourself, knowing what you know today?
Well, I mean, I would have probably done a few more training camps. So that, again, when you look at how many losses I have on my career, and then when you look at the fact that I only did two true training camps, I always tell people I didn't do too shabby for myself. I would have done a few more training camps, because there were times when I was getting in a match and realizing that my cardiovascular is getting depleted here right now, and I think I'm going to lose this match because I've got no gas left in the tank. So it was so maybe. Again, if you could ever go back in time, we can't. You have to live with your decisions that you made at that. But if you're able to do that, maybe do a couple of training camps. But then also, if you look at like one key match, if I was to go back in time and to redo the first and only time I ever faced Hoist Gracie, if I would have done what I know, what I'm capable of doing, where would we be at today? Would there even be a UFC here today if I would have done what I know, what I'm capable of doing? Because you got to realize the Gracies owned half that company at that time, and it was a very self-promotional type aspect that they were using to spread the news about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Because every time that Hoist was winning, they weren't making the comment Hoist Gracie won. It was always like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu beats Taekwondo, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu beats Karate, Gracie. So literally they were saying that this discipline beat all these other types of martial arts. And the Gracie family, I mean, they did quite well for themselves for what they made off of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu franchise.
As far as your record of cage fights, I think you had well over 100 fights. Do you know where you stand as far as most documented cage fights?
Oh, I mean, I'm number 3 on all-time lists. There's Travis Fulton is the all-time leader, and I think it's either over 300 plus matches. He started at a young age, but then also he's also is involved in boxing, so he does a lot of boxing events. Shannon Rich, I think, is number 2, and I think I'm number 3, just all time. But when it comes to match loss ratio and that, I think I'm pretty much at the top of the list when you look at how many matches. But then, like I said, you factor in a couple other factors of when did I start my fight career? Basically, I wasn't 36. I wasn't quite 37, but I always tell people I was closer to 37 than I could say 37. And then when you look at lifetime chemical free, you look at only doing two true training camps, 32 days, 35 days. Find anybody else, either living or deceased, that can make those claims. It'll be hard to find. Again, I don't say that to be braggadocious. I always tell people Dan Severen's not really a braggadocious person. I will simply just rub your face into the cow pie of reality. It doesn't smell so good sometimes.
What do you think about USADA relaxing the rules on cannabis use, as they no longer classify it as a performance-enhancing drug?
I have no problem if someone wants to use CBD, if they want to use cannabis that has THC. I mean, there is a big difference between CBD and then the cannabis itself. One has the getting high factor, one does not have the getting high factor. So basically, CBD there's a lot of health benefits to it, but even CBD with a certain low level of THC helps to open up additional receptors in the body, so it helps to make it that much more effective as something that will help to heal, help to relax. Smoking up a fat boy, I don't think that'll be the smartest thing to do before going into competition, because you might be just a little too mellow, but
it's not going to help your lungs either.
No. Again, you look at the smoke inhalation, because they're even looking at vaping. To me, it's like you're still taking in. They're saying electronic vape does this for you or that, but it's take a smoke into your lungs in general. It's going to do something to the hair follicles that helps to try to keep smoking that out, and then eventually phlegm and all that starts to go into your lungs when you're sick.
What are your thoughts on the current day UFC rules compared to how it was when you were in it, where there was, like, for instance, you'd see 12 elbows or knees to the head of a downed opponent?
Well, I mean, I'll just say that the evolution of the sport had to take place in order for it to survive in the first place. Otherwise, we'd be talking about it all in the past tense. I mean, we're still talking about certain time eras. Like the NHB era, we had talked about that as the past tense. The tournament era, I'll say we sort of talk about that past tense, although there are some new aspects of tournament mixed martial arts, but it's not all done in one night. They're just doing a format tour. They might do one match this month, give you like a month or two off, and then do ladder or match number 2 of the tournament, and then match number 3, so that there's enough time in between so that an athlete can heal up, but then also to appease the athletic commissions, of which they need more athletes who have actually trained in MMA, who have actually competed in MMA, to be involved, to put in a lot more legitimate type of rules that make sense.
Now, you recently appeared on Vlad TV with DJ Vlad. Any thoughts on that? You got a lot of publicity out of that.
Well, again, that's part of Dan Severn living in a little bit of his I don't know, doesn't get out, watch a lot of the media. I did not know who Vlad was. I don't know who he was in the world of social medias and that. I just simply knew that was an interview, and it was an interview together with Don Fry, and that they had interviewed him before. I think it was more interesting before we ever conducted the interview, because the name Vlad, I mean, before we ever got in the air, I was asking about, okay, where did you come up with this name Vlad? I said, and then as he started to speak, I could see the accent and stuff like that. I go, if you don't mind me asking, I go, where are you from? And then he's, he told me, I said, so you're Brewski, and he was, And he was kind of astounded because I mean I always would learn just enough words when I would go to a foreign country to at least customary just saying hello, thank you, and goodbye. But the more time I spent in Japan, I actually had a bigger vocabulary there. Like when I lived out in Arizona for a decade, my Spanish was a whole lot better at the time that I lived out there for a decade because I was using it on a regular basis. But then when I moved back to Michigan, it just went back down. But people from other countries, they like it when you put forth at least a little bit of effort. But again, the overall interview, I think it was, I'll say it was okay.
So you're the only fighter to have over 100 MMA wins on your record.
No, there's two other guys that have over 100 wins.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Travis Fulton, like I said, Travis got the overall highest. Again, I don't know how many of them are MMA and how many of them are boxing, but Travis Fulton is the all-time leader of overall matches. I mean, if you look him up on SureDog or Full Contact Fighter, I mean, he comes up as the #1 big dog there for matches. And then Shannon Rich, I think Shannon is at that over 100 wins category now, but I think he's got even a couple hundred matches.
I see.
But I'll just say that when you look at the win-loss ratio of mine, mine is a little bit tough to beat.
What do you think about the upcoming Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou rematch?
I just know there's going to be. Let's see. Is it going to see the full 5 rounds? Nope. Because when it comes to heavyweights, let's face it, the lightweights are going to throw a lot more hands per round. They're not usually connecting with a 200+ pound body behind it and all the inertia that they're putting into it. I always give credit to the lightweights because per round they're going to give a lot more action, throw a lot more punches. But for whatever the reason is, lots of people like to see the heavyweights because they simply know that they're in to see a knockout. KO or TKO. You may be trying to get back up, but because your body is failing you because you're doing the funky chicken dance as you try to get back up, you get your legs back underneath you, but the referee is going to step in there and stop you before you get hurt that much more.
And the winner of that is supposed to fight John Jones in his heavyweight debut. That's what the rumor is anyways. It seems like his contract dispute might be about resolved. Do you think it's a good idea for Jones to move up to heavyweight?
I think that John Jones is a very talented athlete, and the only person that will get in the way of John Jones is John Jones. He's a great, phenomenal athlete, but he is his own worst demon for getting himself into trouble. If someone could keep him on the straight and narrow, the sky is the limit for what he can still do in his career. He's already done some phenomenal things, but he's still got a lot more that he can do yet.
I know you worked with Chris Candido before. Did you have much contact with Sonny over the years?
No. Actually, it was just I had contact I had with Chris at the time. That's how I probably ever met Sonny, was because they were dating each other way back then. So I just know that Jim Cornette, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Chris Candido was a champion, and that was actually my big break. That I'm not certain if it was Dennis Carluzzo that came up with the initial idea, but he still had to run it by Jim Cornette, and Jim Cornette had to give the thumbs up. So I really thank Jim for being a part of my career, and he's helped me out several times during the course of my career, and always had my best interest. He just simply liked the fact that I was a wrestler that actually could wrestle, and I didn't have to cut promos, and just give me a manager that could talk the talk, and I'll just go out there and do what I needed to do. I always tell people that I was way before there ever was a Brock Lesnar, and I was way before there was ever a Bill Goldberg when WCW was shining, and Bill Goldberg was reigning top.
What do you think of Goldberg's longevity now? Supposedly he's got a $3 million a year deal, downside to only wrestle about 3 times a year.
Again, I'm happy for him. I mean, if that's really what he's got going, I mean, you can't fault anyone for trying to better their situation. It's kind of like, especially when you look at, I mean, how old is Bill Goldberg now, and the fact that he could still, gather
He's in
those
his
types
50s.
yeah. So again, he's doing well because he's well past the age of what most professional wrestling promoters would want, age-wise.
Any memories of your matches against Dory Funk?
I'll just say that it was great to get to know the Funk brothers, both Terry and Dory. Definitely, they're you can see the similarities and then there are definitely differences, but they all seem to have a good sense of humor to them. And it was you could just tell that Dory, I mean, very methodical the way he wants to do things, and has a good business sense to him as well.
Have you participated in any of Josh Barnett's blood sport shows yet?
I believe one or two. I'm not sure because I simply know that during WrestleMania, prior to WrestleMania, there's a lot of different promotions that run right around that same location, same time period, but they're always usually prior to, leading up to. And I know I've been involved in, I believe, a couple of them now. Before it was known as Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, it was known as somebody else's Bloodsport. And so I've been, I know at least, I'll say 3, 4, maybe 5, possibly.
What do you think of that concept?
I like it. Well, the unique thing about the Josh Barnett one is that they had no ring ropes really whatsoever. I still think that I think it'd be great if there was still ring rope, because I think that would still give you some different elements. But the fact is, they're trying to show more wrestling, more techniques than your traditional shooting people into the ropes, and as they come bouncing back off, hitting with clotheslines and drop kicks and things of that nature. So there's because it's so different and it's new. I'll say that professional wrestling goes through and has gone through different cycles, and I just think that it's a good cycle. It's a good fit now.
Yeah, we tried something like that in Great North Wrestling twice, but we actually had the matches in an MMA cage, and I think that was pretty cool. But taking bumps in an MMA cage, I learned the wrong way after taking a backdrop.
Yeah.
And losing the feeling in my legs for a couple of seconds is not a good idea.
There is a world of difference. I mean, you want to, but still, to do matches inside of a professional wrestling ring, it's gives you opportunities to do things, and you can still give them that shooter mystique, and that's what you're looking for. You just try to show something a little bit different, give them some more wrestling. The marquee still says professional wrestling. Don't just get out there and just look at I'm take your attention. It's the baby scroll that's running by right now, right to your, oops, you just went up, he's behind the bush now.
Yeah. So
again, it's just we've had some look over to your right, boom, right there. Okay. Again, sorry about that. Dan never saw a squirrel.
Well, you're a beast. With the beast instincts coming out, you want to chase it. Now, you actually fought Josh Barnett too. Any memories of that fight?
Oh yeah. That was actually in Japan, not Japan, but it was in Hawaii. I think it was called the Brawl for All, and boy, T.J. Thompson. That was a promoted event. It was held in a. I'm not sure if that was a boxing ring or a professional ring. It was a ring. And all I remember is that I threw him in a lateral drop. And as I'm throwing him, his butt hit the bottom rope, his professional ring. Because as he hit, it bounced him, and he ended up on a mount position on top of me. Whereas had I been able to throw it, it would have landed, I would have been perpendicular, I would have had a cross mount position, and I would have been right on his prey, but they did not work out for me. I ended up losing that match to Josh Barnett.
Well, he's got an age advantage on you.
Well, yeah, but there's just, yeah. I don't buy into that one, but I'll be kind for now.
Pat Miletich, you went to a draw with.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him and how controversial he's become in recent years?
Yeah, I just think that the controversy and of it. I mean, the fact that Pat and I did a match in the first place, that was just I knew Pat. I actually trained with Pat at one point in time when I did a little bit of training for again one of my upcoming for. It was either again the Ultimate or UFC number 5, but I happened to be out in Iowa. I actually went out to see Monty Cox and then meet. Well, again, I knew Pat before then. We had met a few times, but to see what they're doing out there, to just see if there's some new things that I could incorporate. But then just to do a match with him, I it's one of those matches that you really don't want to do because size-wise, I'm a much bigger person, but even while I was watching him in the training he trained with people that were a lot bigger than what he was, and it did not seem like size really mattered to him really whatsoever. Just a good guy, someone that I think he's a true American and has the best interests of America.
And as far as Mark Coleman, I know you keep in contact with him.
Yeah.
Any update on how he's doing these days?
I'll say Mark's doing better. In the aspect that I've just earlier today, I tried to reach out to Mark and I left him a message because I know I missed a couple phone calls. He tried to reach me in the last couple of days, but my days are still crazy days. It's hard to believe that at 62 years of age, that Dan Severn is still having crazy days and still likes to do all kinds of stuff, but I do. I will leave different industries and I'll curtail my life as I need to, but I want to continue to use my body and use my mind. The inevitability is we will all die. But how many people have truly lived? And there are a lot of people that they're like zombies. They go to work, they come home, and that's it. They don't really have much of a life outside of that. And I can't believe I'm about to say this because my better half may show some contradictory type of aspect, but you have to learn to stop and smell the roses at times, and there are times when I am so engrossed into what I'm doing. I'll say I'm doing work, but I have a vast variety of things that I do. There's a cliche. The cliche goes like, it talks about the spice of life. I always say that if the cliche variety is the spice of life, well, I am the spiciest person I know. So I know I had to point to the squirrel again, did I? Well, again, the fact is that we're out on Squaw Peak Mountain, and the fact I have never seen squirrels, and the fact that I've seen 3 squirrels today, and that would be just a little baby squirrel running around. I think it's kind of cool that there's animal life, because you got to realize we're up quite a ways in elevation. There's not much to eat up here.
Now, you mentioned life being short. Paul Varlins passed away recently.
Yeah.
Sadly, he wasn't very old. You have a victory over him. Any thoughts on his passing and him as a person?
Yeah, when it was brought up, I mean, well, the first thing that came up to my mind is the fact is that he's younger. It's I'm trying to think. Was Paul 50? Was he in his early 50s? I don't even know if he was. I'm not even sure if he was even at that age. But I'll just say that that he was at least 15 or 20 years younger than me, and to know that this guy was built like a horse and ox. He was known as the Alaskan polar bear. There's a reason he was known as Alaskan polar bear. I think the guy stood like 6'8", 6'9", something like that, weighed over 300 pounds. He was a very formidable, imposing competitor. Just on sheer range, I mean, he had a reach that had to have at least 6 or 8 inches of reach over most people, and that just with the reach of the hand, kicks, knees, elbows, he had all those kind of weapons. So just to see someone younger that passes on, that just kind of saddens you. That's all.
And I got to bring up Tank Abbott, who you hold a victory over. I'll be talking to him again in a couple of days. You weren't aware that he'd moved out here?
Again, yeah, you just you just brought that to my attention, the fact that he moved to Arizona, because I always knew him as the bad boy from Huntington Beach, and so it's the fact that he's out here. I mean, obviously, he must have gotten tired of maybe all the taxation that state is having, and I think there'll be a lot of people that'll be leaving that state and going to other states. But oh well. I mean, I don't want to jump into the political realm there too much, because there's not very many positive things to talk about there. But I mean, I hold no grudge against Tank at this time. Younger in my life, sure, I did, because I saw what he did to a 400-pound sumo. You know, he ends up knocking out a 400-pound sumo with one punch as his opponent lay on the ground. His whole body's kind of stiffening up as he's going to the, what I call the funky chicken flop. Tank had the audacity to strike a man that was down, defenseless, and I just thought, whoa, I couldn't believe he did something like that. And that's when I made the mind. I go, oh, if I should ever get the opportunity to have you inside the octagon cage, I go, evil will begot a greater evil. I could turn on things that most people can only hope to turn on as that competitor aspect. And I'll just say that the night that I finally had my match with him, I mean, I prevailed.
Now, you were on a 2020 documentary with John Stossel, the famous guy that got slapped by Dr. D. Did he bring...
There was also Barbara Walters. I even weighed her opinion on that as well.
I think that was actually the first time I ever became aware of you, was seeing that. How did you like appearing on that?
Well, I'll just say that they did not have NHB's best interests. I think that they were trying to paint it more towards that it was more of a spectacle than it was a sport. I think that really the UFC really did not know that much about my background, and they might have wanted to have used me a little bit more as kind of a spokesperson, because I can only speak on my behalf and what my background comes from. But I'm here as a competitor. I'm not here because I'm a thug rogue fighter that is trying to test his mettle against other, fighters. I'm just a competitor. If we were playing a game of jacks, I'd be trying to compete and beat you in jacks.
And Don Fry, he was on that DJ Vlad interview with you. We might actually be seeing him, who knows, while I'm out here. But any update on how he's doing?
Don, I mean, he's, as I always tell people, he's feisty and as mean as ever. So no, I mean, it's something that I'm sure that we can get something to work out to where I'll make a drive. I need to go down and see him again. I need to do a few things, so it might be something that we can just travel together, go down there and kill a couple birds with one stone.
Yeah, I'm sure the fans would appreciate that.
Don is still that cowboy at heart. I mean, he still has his ranch down in the Sierra Vista area, which is just outside of Tucson, legendary Tucson. When you look at all the different movies that have been made about Tucson, the shootouts at the OK Corral, things of that nature. So it's only befitting that a tough old cuss like Don Fry should live down there.
Do you have any stories about Joe Rogan?
No, I really don't. I mean, I've only ever really met Joe really just through the Ultimate Fighter. Just going to the different UFCs that I ever get a chance really to meet him. I mean, I remember watching him back when he was like hosting Fear Factor, and that was about it. And then meeting him a couple of times, and last I knew he was trying to get me on. He had seen me in the crowd, because one of the nice perks about being like a UFC Hall of Famer is that they will get you tickets. I get to go to any of the UFCs I want to go to, and they'll sit me usually somewhere cage side, just so I can watch, have good seats and sit there. So there's actually a perk to being a UFC Hall of Famer. So I've had
you don't get that in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Is there an actual Hall of Fame? I always ask
There
you-
isn't one yet.
Yeah,
no.
to me, it's like it's all. It's like you could actually go to the UFC headquarters and you'll see people's pictures up
I've
on the
been there.
walls, and it's kind of cool just to see that and to see. I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar complex that athletes do train in, but they do have a lot of cool pictures, and there are certain artifacts that have been kept after certain matches. Gloves and things of that nature.
They also have great coffee
Do they? Oh,
that Forrest Griffin could hook you up with.
Oh,
next time.
okay. Now, I've been there many times, and then Forrest has been a great host, taking me around, and he's got a great sense of humor. I like that about Forrest.
Yeah, he's got a good situation there. Why do you think they embraced Forrest more than Stephan Bonner over the years?
Well, I think it was an interesting way how he came about there in the first place, because he was brought on. It was a lot of people, again, that to educate the fans. It was a match between him and Stephan Bonner that really helped launch the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The fact that they went the full duration of time and they were just knocking the dog crap out of each other, and they were smiling, and then they embraced them when the match was done, and it was just a victory all the way around. Just the ratings that they ended up getting off that one particular match. Why did they embrace one or the other? I don't know. All I know is that there was an opportunity. He was given kind of a position of a job. Well, Forrest actually showed up in Vegas, was there, would go in on a daily basis to work, to where people just got to know him, know his personality, know that he was contributing whatever facet he could contribute to where literally he did walk away with an actual job with the UFC that continues to this day. I think that maybe Stephan Bonner did not go out there, did not embrace this. They did not get a chance really to get to know him or know his character.
Now, we got off topic a bit there, but is Joe Rogan going to have you on his podcast?
Yeah, I just know that there has been times when he has seen me cage side, and he's like, he can't believe how young I still look, what kind of shape I still look like I'm in, and he's always been very complimentary, and I just thought, well, maybe one day I will be on the Joe Rogan show. Never know.
Any plans to run for mayor of Phoenix?
Well, I've had lots of people make comments that I should jump into politics, but I'm not a very political type of. I would not be a good political person because I'm brutally honest. I hate to say it like that. There are some, very, very few politicians and or political figures that we have that is called our leadership. These are people that need to be held accountable for their actions. The Constitution starts off stating, "We the people." It doesn't say us saying y'alls. That's a whole different description right now. They're not living by the same rules that the standard American must live by. So, the bit of a two-face, two-party type system that's taking place. So there's just things that need to change. We live in the country America, and we need some more true Americans as leaders. So that's all I can say about that.
We mentioned the WWE Hall of Fame earlier. You're more than deserving for it.
Well, again, I've had a number of people that comes up into a lot of conversations. They're like, the question is, do you think you should be? I go, based on some of the people I see that have made it in there, oh yeah, I should have been in there way before some of these other people. But at the same token, I'm not a politician. I'm not going to be trying to kiss someone's butt to try to get into a Hall of Fame. To me, that should be cut and dry, no matter who or what kind of a person you are. If you just deserve to be in it, you deserve to be in it. That's the way it should be going down.
Well, I would suspect if they ever do another WrestleMania in Phoenix, that they will probably do it then, because they tend to like to put local people in.
Well, they can do it whether I'm in Michigan or Arizona, because I'm going to say it's hard to say as to where I will be at. It all depends on the time of year. Right now we're in winter.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like winter here in Phoenix, Arizona. Looks like we're on a beautiful sunny day here during the summer months, but it's winter. I'd rather be here wintering than back in Coldwater, Michigan.
So you mentioned you're still keeping as busy as ever. What are some of the projects you're working on these days?
No, I'll just say people. I mean, there's a lot more. I'm doing a lot more podcasts because I want more and more people to really understand who I am and what type of a role I have played in history of no holds barred to mixed martial arts to where the product is today, but also what my role has been in the professional wrestling world. But then what do I do as an everyday person? I'm a very positive individual. I tend to inspire a lot of different people. I mean, I have, through Facebook, I get lots of new friend requests, and people are very complimentary. But at the same token, they're even starting to question, like going, it cannot still be Dan Severn because I've been around too long. I've been accused of, I have to be the son of Dan Severn. I'm Dan Severn Jr. I just followed my father and have the mustache on. But because to have been around, I started my amateur wrestling career back in 7th grade, 1969. So we looked at the fact that I've wrestled in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, and now we're into 2020s. That represents 7 different decades. So I'll be doing at least a few matches during the course of this decade, but I will probably be slowly transitioning to more and more of a speaker and more of a trainer. Still going out on the mats and training. Just last night, I happened to be invited over to an MMA gym just to kind of watch. The owner of the gym had a very prospective type of a student. He just wanted me to watch him, and I just came in and watched him, made a few different notes, and he asked me if I would like to speak. I go, well, if you guys have a question or two, ask me a question or two. You'll get pretty elaborate answers. Followed up with a story, and that's really how it went. But then it quickly went into where I went on the mats. I even showed a couple of techniques of what I was witnessing, what they were doing, just to show them how to do something a little bit better. But then show them how to use a couple pieces of equipment that they had already in their room in a different way that they had never used it before as well. So again, I always tell people that I'm a way better instructor, teacher, coach than I was a competitor. And I wasn't half bad as a competitor, so think about that.
That is true. Now, for people that want to follow you, if they're not already following you, where can they look you up?
Again, the best way is just to go to dansevern.com. That is my website, but it's a website that you can see things, you can't order things off of, but at least there's ways of getting in contact there with me. It shows my email address, it shows the different Facebook pages that I have. And I am a lot better about Facebook. I post more things on Facebook, but just think of me as an old dog that's still trying to learn a few new tricks. I'm still trying to learn a little bit more about the social media and trying to do more things with all the different Snapchats and Twitters and on and on and on. But I had to take it at a slower pace.
Any final comments you'd like to say to the fans to close off?
I would simply say the final words is that I hope you've enjoyed this installment and to set goals for yourself. I mean, if you're not happy in life, look in that mirror and know that really, the only person that really you can blame is yourself. A lot of people want to play the role of a victim. Nah. A victim only goes to a certain extent. You're responsible for your own actions and your own future. Take out that piece of paper and write down some goals, but you have to actively pursue these goals. You can't just write them down as wishful thinking. You have to do things. It's something that, there's something a lot of people may not know about me there as well. I have been in I'll say probably 6, 8 or more movies, just small roles, but I've been in movies. Well, I want to jump into that a little bit more. And I made that a priority. And literally in less than 30 days, I now have 3 movie deals that are coming up that will take place over the next, I'll say, 4 months. So again, it's just a start. Who knows where it will lead to, but rest assured, I keep a very positive outlook and, lead on to the next project and to the next project. Who knows, maybe one day, I mean, The Rock and I, we've been inside the ring together, maybe we'll be on the silver screen together.
What was that like? I got to ask you about that. I didn't even know.
Well, again, it was during the time when The Rock was in the Nation of Domination. So you had Farouk, you had Mark Henry, you had The Godfather. I mean, so you had a whole cast of characters. So, I'll say that the match started out with The Rock, but then it ended up being, I'm being splashed by Mark Henry. I've got D'Lo Brown that's grabbing me like this. I've got so it was like, went from one-on-one to, 4-on-1. So it was in the magical world of professional wrestling. I enjoyed it.
Was he a nice guy back then?
I never really had any true interaction with him. So it's just kind of like we had our match, and that was really about it. I mean, he was moving up the ladder, the star, so he had a lot more things that he was involved with. He spent a lot more time with the creative team. There was, again, when you asked about going back in time, I did not realize that I could have had a little bit more input on my character. I did not understand the aspect of it to where I would have sat down with a little bit more of these creative team members, and I would have said, this is how I envision, or these are things that I'm a whole lot more comfortable doing. So
interesting. So I guess you were surprised at his success?
Oh no! The guy, he's got all kinds of charisma and stuff like that. He had as for raising his eyebrows and flexing and popping the pecs. I mean, he was able to use stuff in professional wrestling that he still uses in his roles as movies. So it's just, what is professional wrestling? You're taking on a role. What are movies? You're taking on a role. So I think that professional wrestling basically helped build the foundation that he's able to exploit now on the big screen.
What's your best fighting advice you would give someone for just generally if they're attacked on the street or have to defend themselves?
Well, hopefully to never have that situation happen, really to be a lot more aware of your surroundings. Know when you're walking out to a parking lot, where are you at? What's around you? I talk to females all the time, and there's all kinds of stuff that females can be doing, and especially we live in this era of small little gadgetry. I mean, you could actually have a small taser. You could actually have you could spray them with the pepper sprays and things of that nature. You have blasting horns. You've got just all kinds of mechanisms that you can put through your, you can put even if you carry your car keys, the way that you can interlace your car keys through your knuckles, and that's a weapon. So there's things you can do, but situational awareness, knowing where you're at when you go out there, and if you're, there's always using some type of security that can you escort me to my car and stuff like that. They'll do that kind of stuff. So we still live in a world that has some type of civility to it.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you chatting with us again and giving me the tour of the mountain here. It's been beautiful. I'll let you close this off however you want.
No, just stand to be Severn here. Just sign up with HANNIBAL TV. I mean, it's been a great day. Beautiful sunny day.